They told me the old mine was empty. Dangerous, yes. The earth up here is always ready to swallow a careless man, snap old beams like twigs, bury secrets where roots and time can twist them beyond memory. But empty, they said. A dead place where nothing grows, where the wind sometimes hums through the broken timbers and makes the locals cross themselves out of habit they pretend they've forgotten. I used to believe them. 3 years up here, I learned to listen to the mountain the way you listen to an old dog's breathing at night. Steady, comforting, heavy with things left unsaid. I didn't come to this place to chase ghosts or poke my nose where it didn't belong. I came because I'd run out of excuses for living anywhere else. The cabin sits at the edge of a clearing that never quite dries out. Spring leaves puddles under the porch. Summer bakes them to mud. Winter turns them into glass. My closest neighbor is the tree line, a dark wall of pine and spruce so dense it feels like it's watching when you step outside at night. I live alone by choice, though some nights I pretend it's just how things turned out. The truth is, people can't talk you out of your own mind the way the wind can. People ask you to explain your quiet. The forest just lets it fill the gaps. I get by with odd jobs, repairing the old folks' sheds, stacking cordwood for winter, fixing fences that the bears flatten every spring. The same bears I warn folks about when they come up here in the warmer months, city families in shiny SUVs asking where to pitch a tent for the real wilderness experience. I don't tell them that the real wilderness doesn't care if you're ready for it. It was mid-February when I heard it. One of those nights so cold the snow squeaks under your boots like an old hinge. I'd stepped out to the shed for more firewood when the wind shifted and carried a sound down the ridge. A cry, but not the sharp bark of a fox, not the yip of a coyote or the echo of an owl asking its endless questions. This was different. Thin, wet around the edges, cracking like it came from something too small to be out there alone. I stood there a long time with my arms full of wood, breath ghosting around my beard, ears straining to catch it again. It came once more, softer, like it was sinking back into the earth. And then the wind took it. I stacked the wood by the stove, sat in my chair, watched the orange glow catch on the frost lacing the window. I told myself it was nothing, a trick of the wind, a half-dream the mountain tells to fool lonely men. But the cry stuck behind my ribs like a thorn I couldn't cough up. By dawn, I'd packed a thermos, my old army coat, a flashlight with half a battery, and a coil of rope I hadn't touched in years. I didn't know what I thought I'd find up there, but I knew I'd never sleep again if I didn't look. The path up to the old mine is a rumor now, a faint track under drifts of snow and last autumn's deadfall. When I was young, the old men in town used to say it had been dynamited shut after the last collapse. But the ridge shifts in its sleep. Sometimes it gives back what it took. By the time I reached the clearing, the sun was bleeding through the trees, but the mine mouth still sat in shadow, a black wound in the slope. Rusted rails led into it like broken veins. The air that drifted out smelled stale, too cold to belong to daylight. I paused at the entrance, feeling stupid for a heartbeat. What did I think I'd find? A child lost in the dark? A wounded deer? My breath fogged the beam of my flashlight. Something deep in the dark answered, not with a sound, but with silence so thick it pressed on my chest. I stepped inside. Inside the mine, the cold is a living thing. It creeps under your collar, seeps into your boots, turns your sweat to ice on your back. The walls squeeze close, damp rock streaked with old pick marks, beams black with rot. My flashlight caught on bits of the past. A rusted lantern hook, a chunk of rail twisted by some ancient shift in the earth. Deeper in, the ceiling dripped. Water tapped the stones in slow, patient rhythms. My footsteps slipped on patches of old ice, the beam of light bobbing, jittery. And then, the cry. Clearer now, not human, not wind. A sound pulled from the belly of something too young to be alone in a place like this. I followed it down a side tunnel where the walls squeezed tighter, the beams sagging under ages of cold. I found him under a brace that had given way years ago, a pocket in the rubble, just wide enough for a small body to crawl in and get trapped by the living rock. He looked dead at first. A lump of patchy fur, ribs like knuckles under the skin, nose buried in what I realized, too late, was his mother's side. She was still and sunken, bones sharp against the loose hide. The cub's ear twitched when my light found him. He turned his head, blinking into my face like he wasn't sure I was real. A black bear cub, maybe 6 months old, far too young to last another night alone. His fur was patchy with mange, one ear torn, ragged. His eyes were too big for his head, gold glass catching the light. I crouched slow, talking under my breath, soft words from a mouth that had forgotten softness. "Hey there, buddy. Easy. You don't have to move. I see you. You're okay." Lies. But he stayed still. Maybe he knew the truth didn't matter if it came warm. I slipped off my coat, laid it over him like a blanket. He didn't flinch, just shuddered once under the sudden weight of warmth. His sides fluttered so fast, I thought they'd rattle his ribs apart. I didn't know how to lift him without hurting him. I didn't know how much of his life was still in him. I only knew I couldn't leave him for the mine to keep. I worked my arms under him, slow as a prayer. He pressed his nose into my chest when I lifted him. A soft grunt, the only protest he could manage. His claws hooked my flannel like he was trying to hold on, even if he didn't know to what. The beam overhead groaned, a deep splintering sigh. Dust drifted from the ceiling, catching my light in flakes like ash. The tunnel behind me creaked, a warning in the bones of the mountain, leave or stay forever. I bent low, cradling the cub against my chest, feeling his heartbeat buzz like a trapped moth. I moved slow at first, then faster as the creaks turned to cracks and small stones skittered underfoot. When the roof finally gave, it sounded like thunder trapped in a box. I didn't look back. I ran, boots slipping, knees cracking against old rails. I could feel the cold air of the clearing pulling me forward, while the mine behind me folded itself shut, stone swallowing stone. I burst into the clearing on my knees, gasping, the cub still tucked tight against my ribs. My coat was half off him now, his nose poking out, damp breath misting the morning air. He made a soft sound. Not quite a cry, not quite a growl. Just life, stubborn and small, refusing to be buried. I sat there with him for what felt like hours. The sun rose over the pines, turning the snow to diamonds around us. He shivered under my coat, and I whispered nonsense to him, things I hadn't said to anyone in years, promises I had no right to make. Later, the ranger came, the vet. They shook their heads at me, called me a fool for dragging a half-dead bear cub out of a dead mine with no plan. Maybe they were right. I didn't argue. They took him to the sanctuary over the mountain pass, said he'd need medicine, warmth, time, said it was a long shot. I nodded, said nothing, drove home with the ghost of his heartbeat still echoing in the hollow where he'd rested against my ribs. A month later, I went to see him. The sanctuary was a wire fence and a low barn, warm straw under lamps. He was bigger now, fur thickening, that torn ear giving him a rakish look, eyes bright when they met mine through the wire. when they opened the pen to let him go, when they said he was strong enough to find his own den before the next snow. He paused just at the edge, turned his head once, held my eyes like he knew what we'd borrowed from each other in the dark. Then he slipped between the trees. A shadow returned to the place that made him. And in that single glance before he vanished, I understood that sometimes saving something small and wild can save a part of you too. Spring comes late up here. The thaw is slow, the river's greedy, the mud deep enough to steal your boots if you don't watch your step. But when the sun finally hits the high ridge, it wakes up the forest in a way that makes you believe it'll forgive you anything. I still live in the same cabin, still mend fences, patch roofs. The nights don't feel so sharp now. Some evenings, when the wind shifts, I sit on the porch and listen for him. Not a cry anymore, but maybe the crack of a branch, the hush of paws through underbrush too close to be the wind alone. People say the old mine is sealed for good. They say the mountain finally swallowed its ghosts. Maybe they're right. Maybe it's true what they say about empty places, but I know better now. Some holes never stay empty. Some ghosts just need one fool willing to crawl into the dark to carry them back to daylight. And if there's a young bear out there tonight, ribs strong, fur thick, breath misting in the spring dark, then that's enough for me to believe this mountain and I for once did something right together.